Does one's worldview matter? Oh, by the way, kids are dismissed. Sorry. One gets a little sidetracked sometimes. You say, are you teaching on apologetics again? I'm going to teach on apologetics until you pry my Bible out of my dead, cold hand. Because until you understand a biblical worldview and understand the worldviews that we are being subjected to, your life will not matter a wink. Next slide, please. We're going to talk about what does it mean to be human. Look at those eyes. Look at those eyes. Look into the eyes of a beautiful little baby. And actually, we have one here for an object lesson today. Look in the eyes of a beautiful little child, and you tell me there is no God. I dare you. Next slide. You know what that means? 5 babies since the beginning of that video have been aborted. 2.22 every minute. Excuse me, every 2 minutes of the day. 2.22. By the time I am done talking, 95 babies will be aborted in America. It's insanity. 53 million since Roe. Go ahead. So do we value life? It's a sarcastic question because in America we truly don't. And if you understand what's happening in America right now with all the circus that's going on in Washington, we don't value life. Your life is no longer valuable in the government's eyes, in Planned Parenthood's eyes. It was never in Planned Parenthood's eyes. They're just an extension of the liberal society. Next. Here's the thing. In 2 Timothy 3 it says, but know this, difficult times will come in the last days. I like how Peterson says it in the Message, and hear how it goes. Don't be naive. There are difficult times ahead. As the end approaches, people are going to be self-absorbed, money-hungry, self-promoting, stuck-up, profane, contemptuous of parents, crude, coarse, dog-eat-dog, unbending, slanderers, impulsively wild savages, cynical, treacherous, ruthless, bloating windbags, addicted to lust, and allergic to God. They'll make a show of religion, but behind the scenes, they're animals. Stay clear of these people. We are in the end times. We are facing difficult times. But there's a verse that I want you to be your bathroom verse of the week. What do you mean? I want you to get your wife's lipstick and take on your biggest mirror in your house, usually it's in the bathroom, full length, write this verse. But I understand this, that in the last days, keep going, one more. By the way, it says a man without ethics is a wild beast loosed upon the world. Nobel Prize winning journalist. Next. Ephesians. Ephesians says this, look carefully how you walk. Live purposely and worthily and accurately, not as the unwise and witless, but as wise, sensible, intelligent people, making the very most of the time, buying up each opportunity because the days are evil. That's your verse of the week that you need to be writing in your bathroom wall, because every single day, every single moment of time, if you are truly doing the right thing, if you're truly trying to live it out, you're going to buy up time. You're going to buy up every opportunity. You have to seize the day. Go ahead, next slide. The morning after pill is now available in dispensing machines. Can you guess where it is being sold?
Shippensburg.
Thank you. Anyway, go ahead, next. Not in France, not in India, not in the UK, not in California. It is happening in Shippensburg University. Shippensburg, just a high bit of a jump up the road. Give you a background of this real quick. It's on vending machines in the campus health center. It's $25. They have kowtowed to the political correctness on the safety and well-being of female students, so they say. This birth control's prescription requires consultation between a patient and doctor before ordering. Plan B, which is what they're selling in the machines, is a higher dose of this birth control drug, which is to be taken 72 hours after sex to stop a newborn baby from happening.
Technically, no more than 72 hours.
Thank you. We have a medical guy here. He's going to. You have permission to chime in anytime because you know some of this better than I do. Think about this for a second. In Pennsylvania, on one of our state colleges, there's a vending machine. For $25, you can take the pill and kill a child before it happens. Think about that. The prescription that you're supposed to have doctor's consultation before you can buy it through a pharmacy can be purchased for $25 in a machine. Some critical questions are raised. You can leave that slide up for a little bit because I want you to keep staring at the kid as I talk. Here's the questions. One of the most contentious and difficult areas in ethics today revolves around the related fields of medical ethics and biotechnology. The field raises many questions. Now, before I go any further, this is to equip you. I want you to see what is out there. I want you to look at reality. I want you to say, this is the way the world believes. This is the people in the world who believe this, who are subjecting our nation, our world to these worldviews. And this is what the Bible teaches. This is what I believe. And if I truly believe it, how am I going to intersect my society? You need to be forearmed. On the medical front, how should we allocate medical resources? Should decisions be based on a patient's ability to pay? Or should we guarantee some form of standard care to everyone? If we should do the latter, who determines what a minimal standard of care is? How should we handle shortages of medical supplies or personnel? Who makes the end of life or beginning of life decisions? In the biotechnical field, the questions are just as big. Is it ever right to take a life in order to save one? Just because science can, should it? What is the appropriate use of genetic testing to determine whether or not a baby should be carried to term? If so, what's the limit of the testing? This calls for a central question. Hovering over all these questions is a real question. What does it mean to be human? As human beings, fundamentally, are they different than animals? Is there a difference between a human being and a person? If so, who decides what it is or when it is? One of the big questions about Roe versus Wade and the whole abortion question is the argument is when does it become a person versus is it just an organic tissue? There's a law, as we prayed a couple weeks ago, that's happening in Ohio. This law in Ohio is called the heartbeat law. The heartbeat law is once a heartbeat is determined in a child, it cannot be aborted. And they're trying to pass this now in the Ohio legislature. I pray that this would happen in America. That's a good next step. Do human beings all have equal value, dignity, or some people more valuable, more deserving of rights, or more deserving of medical care than others? Our society in the West was founded on the fact that we had equal rights and dignity. But we live in perilous times, and in the coming years, in the coming months, it's going to be more and more difficult to live out these values. Is this where it is critical for you to stop and determine by what worldview are you going to live? What worldview are you going to pass on to your kids? And who, and this is a big one, who has the right to influence your kids' decisions? Now it's election year. There's going to be a lot of explosive stuff happening in the news. There's going to be a lot of argument. They're going to make it all about the presidency. But I want to challenge your thinking here. This is not about who's president. This is not at all about who's president. Okay, as a matter of fact, who's president to me doesn't matter as much as who's on our school board. Who's taking over health and human services in our county? Who's your school nurse? Think about that. Those are where transcendent values need to be implemented. Those are where we need the rubber to meet the road. We got to get forearmed with information about societal things, how to place a value on life, how a general worldview will determine our freedom and lifestyles. By understanding the root causes is just as important, if not more important, than who's in office. What's the worldview, and who is the influence of our nation's leaders? This week, we saw some really interesting things come to pass. I have not unpacked it all. My wife's done a little bit more study on it than I have. I'm praying that the Catholics rise up in arms, personally. Do you understand that our very fabric of religious liberty is at stake here? That our government is trying right now, if I understand what was being proposed, faith organizations will be mandatory that if we buy a health care plan for any employees, it has to include abortions and contraceptives. Has to, by this law being proposed. It goes further than that. If I understand it correctly, that we will be required to support abortions as faith organizations. Where does it stop? You know where it's going to stop? It's going to stop with them dictating to me as a pastor, passing out condoms to kids in youth group, because that's what Planned Parenthood recommends to our government to do. It will not stop until our religious liberty is trounced. It's a slippery slope. I'm not going to get into that. I just want you to be aware. I want you to start reading and be the intelligent believers that I know you are. I want you to gobble up what's going on. I want you to look deeper to what the roots are. You see, we're living in a society where battlefield triage has become the norm. Go ahead to the next slide. Pearl Harbor. One of the most amazing clips in that movie was the nurses being told by the doctors, take some lipstick and go out and mark on the foreheads of who we can save. These young girls who were just young and in love and full of life and just basic, they're out of medical school. They didn't have huge life training. They were being told by doctors, because of the situation they were in, to go out and choose who is going to die, who's going to live. That's our worldview now. That's what's happening in our world. With socialized medicine run by government, that same attitude is going to become commonplace. I want you to ask anyone from a different country. Actually, we do have some guys from a different country who can actually speak to socialized medicine. Professor George from Princeton, who's a law professor, who, by the way, the full video we're going to show Thursday night and have our discussion. But he shared a really interesting story, and you'll see the video on Thursday night. It states that while he was in the UK, I believe it was at Oxford while he was a student, there was a lady, a lunch lady, that he really got to go a friendship with. And she had cancer. And she was trying to get a mastectomy. She petitioned for 5 years to the socialized network. She sat for hours in these lines petitioning. He went and argued with doctors. This lady died because she was deemed not worthy of saving. When I worked in international business, I got to hang out with business leaders from the UK, from Germany, from Italy. And one of the things that really struck me was the slippery slope that socialized medicine created in all walks of life. First of all, socialized medicine, which our government is not wanting to really tell you, it's not enough. If you really want good medical care, you're still going to have to buy an additional plan. By the way, that's what's happening in every nation, Greece, Germany, everywhere, I'm assuming Sweden, everywhere in the world. If you want really good health care, you're still going to have to buy a plan for a private hospital. You're still going to have to do that. But by the way, if you make $50,000 a year or more in Germany, you're taxed at such a ridiculously huge rate that you lose 3/4 of your income over $50,000 to pay for socialized medicine. That, by the way, you also have to pay another health care plan, because the socialized medicine plan isn't very good.